Welcome back to the Patriots Report, part of the Believe Network, presented by Fan Duel. My name is Christopher Price, the Boston Globe and BostonGlobe.com, joined as always by my podcast partner, two-time Super Bowl champion, Chris Hogan. Chris, we have some way too early odds, courtesy of our friends at Fan Duel. You ready to get into these?
Can't wait.
It's we've reached the halfway point, almost the halfway point of the offseason. Obviously, the draft is still a couple of weeks away, but the 2026 season is starting to come into focus here a little bit. And the first one that I have for you here is over under. Patriots are 9.5. That's the number that's been set by FanDuel for the 2026 Patriots here at the halfway point of the offseason. 9.5 wins. I am taking the over just barely. I don't think we're going to hit, 14 wins like they had last year, but I don't think it's going to be as doom and gloom as maybe some other people would say. I know it's the tougher schedule. I know obviously they're going to have the bullseye on their back, AFC champions, all of that. But as we sit here right now, I'm willing to cautiously take the over if you give me 9.5 when it comes to Patriots wins in 2026.
I'm gonna take the over. Well, we can always rename this, the cautious optimism Patriots report, but um, I don't know. I don't see this. I see this team just continuing to progress. I don't think we'll be. I think it's unrealistic to say that we're going to be as successful on the road like we were last year. But do I think that we have 10 to 11, 12 wins next year? Like, yeah, I do. And listen, that's all things considered, right? Injuries and guys playing well and things kind of all continuing to mesh. And but like the turnover is not there, right? We have Josh is the same, Drake is the same. We have guys returning. This team is, for from an outside perspective, is looking and going to feel the same with a couple of added additions and free agency in the draft. And I think that all signs are going to be. I mean, listen, the target is painted, right? And people are going to be. The hate is still very real with this team, saying that they strength of schedule and they didn't play anyone, and the quarterbacks they played were, so we're going to have plenty to talk about, when the upcoming season, but this team did a really good job of blocking all of that stuff out and just going out there and focusing. Again, I said this probably ad nauseum last year, and you probably got tired of hearing it, but it's still all about New England, right? It's
Mhm.
not about who we're playing or who the quarterback is or what the defense is. This team is continuing. Mike and Elliott and Josh and the guys in that locker room are building a culture, and they're setting a standard of what this program and what this organization is going to be built on and how they're going to approach each season and each game. And I think that we're going to see a lot of the same. I think we're going to see Drake get better. I think we're going to see guys like Travion Henderson, take on more roles. I think we're going to see, we have some new additions, and so obviously excited to see Dobbs out there and see how these receivers progress and what we're able to piece together on the offensive line. But uh, like 10 wins, I think is very attainable. I do. And I think that this team is going to be, they are, you know, regardless of whatever you think, they made it to the Super Bowl last year. So they're the runner up. They are the team to beat in the AFC right now. They are. You got you got Mahomes coming off ACL.
Mhm.
You have Josh Allen, who just has the Bills continuously just don't provide him any sort of help. God, who knows what they're doing? I mean, the Jets are the Jets, right?
Well, here I
Miami,
have
great.
the Patriots. When it comes to the FanDuel odds for the AFC, the
Yeah,
Patriots are fifth. Do you want to hear who's in the top
yeah,
four?
I would
Okay,
love to.
they have the Bills at number one at plus 490, which I think is a little generous.
It's
I like
extremely
the Bills
generous.
traditionally, but I don't know if I'd make them the AFC favorite, at least at this point.
Well,
The
they have a new
Ravens,
stadium, so they're
yeah,
gonna get.
yeah, and look, there's going to be. I think the Bills are a fascinating team going
Yeah.
into 2026. New stadium, new head coach. They are clearly a franchise at a crossroads. And
Yeah.
I want to see how Josh Allen responds to all this. I think he has
Sure.
answered the call on just about every occasion, but this is a sizable challenge for him, and I want to see how he does. So they're first. They right now. Buffalo sits as the favorites in the eyes of the folks at FanDuel. The Ravens are number two.
Okay.
Maybe, I don't know. The Chargers are number three, which surprised me a little bit, and then the Chiefs are number four, and then the Patriots come fifth.
I mean, the Chiefs is that's a political pick right there. I mean, they didn't play well last year. Guy, he's coming off ACL. So, like, listen, I mean, Mahomes has got a long road ahead of him to make sure that he's can still do the things that he needs to do. They signed back Travis. I mean, Travis, I think is just, that was a he didn't have a great year last year. There's a lot of moving parts on in that skill position room. So, and that defense is still kind of suspect. I don't agree with anything that FanDuel has put up. I really don't. I mean, the AFC is interest. It is an interesting
Yeah,
division because you just like, and this is really just in general, but you just don't know until the season starts, right? We don't know how Lamar Jackson is going to be. We don't know how Mahomes is going to be. We don't know how Josh Allen is going to respond to a new head coach with nobody to throw the ball to, and a new stadium. The Chargers, yeah, like they were on the up, right? They played well last year. They were a good team. The defense was really their rock there. So who knows how Herbert, so again, it's so much of it, and I guess this is really across the league, but so much of it really is like, how's a quarterback going to do? How's he going to
yeah.
play?
Look, it's
Right.
exactly. It's a quarterback-driven league, and
Yep.
and I think that's what it comes down to. And I think all five of these teams could be in the mix to win the AFC next year if their quarterback plays.
We can argue that they're all number ones. And
Yeah,
it's just,
exactly. One of the things that I thought was interesting here is we saw two AFC East teams, Bills and the Patriots, two AFC West teams in the Chargers and the Chiefs, an AFC North team in the Ravens, no AFC South teams in the top five. No Texans, no Jaguars. No, I'm not necessarily advocating for the AFC South here, but I did think it was interesting that we did not see an AFC South team as part of this mix.
yeah. I mean, listen, the Texans and the Jaguars. I mean, Jaguars obviously, they both started slow and then really turned it on towards the end of the season. So again, how it's comes down to quarterback play, and I think the Texans are probably a better team than FanDuel has given them credit for, and Jacksonville. Kind of just never know how they're going to be each
Yeah,
year. So, and the AFC North, Pittsburgh is going to be up there, right? It's just you don't really know how that whole team is going to get pieced together too. So, I think when you look at it from the teams that are coming back, right? From a team like New England who was very healthy, they added a piece in the skill position. They are going to hopefully have a good draft and draft appropriately and get some guys to protect, but also help in other areas of offense, defense. Guys that are going to be probably, let's just call it, role players that are going to fit the culture and want to be on a team that Mike and Elliot are putting together here. I think from any of the outside noise, we're not dealing with that right now, right? Other than they had an easy schedule last year, which I just really don't care to hear anymore. I think that this team just kind of, chip on their shoulder, head down, get to work in this offseason, have a good training camp, and like, let's kind of see where the chips fall again. And I think that we're going to be sitting here at the end of September and October, and we're going to be saying that the New England Patriots look like one of the better teams in the AFC, at least top three. Um, and those other teams, it's really, we just don't know. I don't think that experiment in Buffalo is going to go well. I don't. I think that was I want to be not be so mean here, but I don't agree with why they made that move. It doesn't make any sense to me for a guy that built that program up to the top team in the AFC to just hand it off to somebody who's never been a head coach in this league. Like, it's not easy, right? We have one in our own building that just hasn't worked out, right? And it just hasn't been the same. Even like Josh obviously went to different programs and different organizations, but like what's this guy's message going to be in Buffalo? Is it going to be totally different than McDermott's? Is he going to just try to piggyback off of McDermott? Like, it's not an easy job to do. And then like he's under the microscope as well as Josh Allen, right? So yeah, it's again, yeah, these
Well,
bold predictions
yeah,
in April, what is it? April 6th, April
April
7th.
7th. April 7th. Yeah. I'll say this in Buffalo, it feels a little bit like in talking to people in Western New York that there was a power struggle between the GM and the head coach, and the GM won. And
Yeah.
basically that's what you got. Brandon Beane survived, Sean McDermott didn't, and Beane got his guy, and now we're going to move forward with the group that we have, and we're going to see how it all works out. The other thing too, if you're going to bring someone in to kind of try and take the quarterback from here to here again, you might as well bring in the offensive coordinator who had, in all likelihood, the best working relationship with him of anyone on staff. And so I think, I don't know. The other team too, for me, when we talk about fascinating teams in, the Bills, obviously, I think the Bengals,
Yeah.
the Bengals for me, they have a world class offense and they have a bunch of question marks on defense, and I wonder how they're going to go about addressing those in the draft. But the Bengals also strike me as a team that is very much at a crossroads. And
Hmm.
I have all the respect in the world for what they can do on the offensive side of the ball. We've seen it for the last 3, 4, 5 years, going to the Super Bowl, putting up 30 plus points a game. But do they need to hit the reset button there with
Yeah.
those wide receivers? Do they need to trade one of the wide receivers? Do they need to bring in a new head coach? They need to figure it out. They need to figure out a way to try and get to the next level. So the two most fascinating teams for me this offseason, and halfway point of the offseason, are the Bills and the Bengals.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't think the Bengals, it just seems like they can't get out of their own way.
Mhm.
I don't know if you mess with with what that offense can do, they're able to do a lot. I think that they just need to. I don't. There were such high expectations for them last year. It really was, and I think that they just fell short of them from the jump. And that seemed to just be, obviously Burrow got injured, and there was a lot of other factors that went along for why their season turned out the way it did. But I kind of like just stop with the expectations, right? You're a good team, Joe, Jamar, T. Like, you guys got all the talent in the world offensively. So like, I think it's glaringly obvious that we just need to improve on the defensive side of things. So if I'm in the Bengals front office, like let's try to boost up this defense and whatever free agency in the draft, and let's see if we can put a good team together, because it just seemed like there was a lot of no one was meshing last year on that team, right? It
Yeah,
just seemed like a bunch of guys out there trying to win
yeah.
football games. So maybe that is, we'll see. Maybe it's hit the reset button and get rid of Zach, but I think Zach's a good head coach. I think he's done a good job with that team, at least from an offensive standpoint, right? And
And they let they're probably arguably one of their best defensive players walk in free agency in Trey Hendrickson.
yeah, that's true too. So
I
you
just
have some
don't know.
gaps to
Yeah,
fill.
yeah. I just don't know how long they can go outscoring teams, basically.
No,
And I
you
can't.
can't win
Yeah,
in this league like that. It's too
yeah.
hard.
It's going to be fun to watch. I mean, there's going to be a lot of 35-31 games, but I just don't know how sustainable that is. And again, maybe they find some answers in the draft. They're drafting in the top half of the first round.
Yeah.
They can figure it out, and they're going to get a little bit of an easier schedule next year. And so maybe that's the path back for them. I just, again, those are the two teams for me in the AFC. Obviously, we're AFC centric here. Those are the two teams that are really, for me, the most intriguing at this point of the offseason going into 2026. MVP. FanDuel has the MVP odds, the way too early MVP odds. We talked about Josh Allen. He is the number one choice. He is, and I'm having a hard time reading my own chicken scratch here. I believe he is plus 600 as we sit here right now. Lamar Jackson is at plus 750, and our own Drake May is plus 850. It's a pretty good group. And
Yeah.
once again, we talk about how this is a quarterback driven league. And so it's not a huge surprise to see three quarterbacks in the top three here when it comes to the way too early odds for MVP voting.
Yeah.
I
FanDuel is
don't.
just picking. They're picking names out of a hat at this
Yeah, well, exactly. Yeah,
point.
and that's what you do. I mean, look, I think that those are three very legitimate choices.
Yeah. Yeah.
At the same time, those are the three, three of the best young quarterbacks in the league, and I think that they're rolling the dice here when it comes to betting heavily on the Bills uh, going into the 2026 season. But I think that that is a fairly good group of potential MVP candidates at this point of the offseason.
Yeah. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how Drake comes out and plays this year. I don't. I'm trying to think of what I'm looking to, or what my expectations are for him, but obviously we just want to continue to progress and to get better. But what does that look like, right? Like what does that actually mean? So I think for Drake, it's having a little bit more command and knowledge of the offense. I think that he did a really good job of spreading the ball around last year. We're gonna hopefully not have the ball security thing. He did a really good job of obviously in the pocket. I think maybe having that little bit of awareness, things that we watch football and we're able to just tell that he's been working on stepping up in the pocket with two hands on it and not being careless with those sort of things. And I guess maybe just his decision making and overall timing and quickness to make decisions too. I think that's really going to be something that I look for next year in just his progression of the with him and Josh and his relationship. And I think another offseason with Josh, and another give a couple of months for in this whole offseason to really study the playbook, add new things, get comfortable with new things. I think that you're going to see a lot more. I think that Josh is going to be able to open up this offense even more next year in terms of personnel and movement and formations and really try to get a good grip on what Drake is good at. And he's good at a lot of things, but I think let's like if you want to take the next level, like let's make sure that he's doing these things great, right? And that he's really taking this offense to the next level. So I think I'm looking for him to step up in that leadership role. I think we had some guys exit and I think Steph was a big part of that leadership on that offense. So I need guys to step up there. It'd be great for Drake to kind of fill that role a little bit. I'd love to see him, be a captain this year, right? And um, that'll be another way too early. We should have a FanDuel should have another captain's pick for
I
next
like
year,
it.
but
I like that a lot.
you know,
I do.
but
I like that a lot. I could tell you what, I can give you 5 off the top of my head.
yeah, I could, yeah, I could too. I could
I
probably give
could
you,
I could I could I could give you 5. I could say Drake, Hunter Henry,
yep,
um, Milton Williams,
yep,
maybe Christian Gonzalez,
maybe, yep.
Robert Spillane,
Schooler.
and Schooler.
Yeah.
And I might
Yeah.
put one more offensive guy in there.
Maybe Morgan, right? I mean,
Yeah. Yeah, maybe
he'd
Morgan.
yeah, I think we don't, he's obviously a veteran guy in that room. So it's going to be probably the most vocal out of all of them. So, um, but I think those are pretty sound captain's picks. I mean,
I'll throw you one. I'll throw you one more. Wild card. Kayshawn Booty.
ooh, that is a wild card.
Wild card.
Is
Wild
he
card. Because
vocal? Is he like an active guy on the
he's not
team?
so much
Like
an active
he's,
guy, but I could see Vrabel and Josh rewarding him for what he did last year and stepping up and asserting himself and being kind of a quote unquote, a bit of a veteran presence
yeah.
on that
Well, I
offense.
mean, like, listen, Steph left, right? So there's room for somebody to step up in that room, and Dobbs is coming in, but he's a new guy, right? So it's sometimes those it takes a minute for the new guys to get comfortable and with everyone, and they're not going to be as vocal, but they're, going to be, they're going to work hard, but it's not going to be something where they want to step up into that leadership captain role. So yeah, I mean, like I would say that if he wants that position and be that guy, like there's definitely room for somebody to step up in that room specifically, at least.
I want to take a mulligan here real quick on one of them. I'll take Gonzalez off the list and I'll put Kevin Byard on that list.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
I could see that.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I could
So
definitely see that.
we would have Drake, Hunter, Byard. I'm gonna stick with Booty as a possibility. Milton Williams and Spillane and Schooler.
Yeah, Schooler. I mean,
It's a
all
long
those
list,
guys.
actually.
Yeah,
That may be that's 7 guys. That may be a bit long.
yeah. If they're
Yeah,
gonna be
yeah,
the guys, right?
exactly. Exactly. So so that's our way too early list of captains. But yeah, the MVP candidates, the top 3 MVP candidates: Josh Allen at plus 600, Lamar Jackson plus 750, and Drake May plus 850. You know what would make those change fairly dramatically is if the Patriots land AJ Brown.
Yeah.
I'm willing to bet that Drake May's numbers, the odds on Drake May becoming MVP for 2026 will increase going into the offseason workout program if they find a way to land
What's
AJ
the
Brown.
what's the vibe up there? Is there any more talk?
It is inevitable. That's the vibe that I get from people in Philadelphia, as well as look. The people in Philadelphia think that there's going to be some sort of divorce somewhere along the way. It's
Mm,
just a matter of when and where he ends up going. The other name that continues to kind of bubble to the surface, the other team that continues to bubble to the surface, I should say, is Los Angeles, the Rams.
mm.
We don't know what is going on really with Puka Nakua.
Guy's living his best life, man.
You're in rehab and you're making these
Ah,
viral videos and you're making some really bad off-field decisions.
I know.
And so I think that maybe I wonder if it gets to a point with Sean McVay where he says, you know what, this isn't worth it anymore. He's a wonderful receiver. He is just and I'm separating. I want to be very clear to separate the on-field talent, the tremendous on-field talent, with a number of bad decisions he continues to make away from the field or has made away from the field over the last year or so. The
Yeah.
on-field stuff is tremendous. The off-field stuff, I think NFL teams just reach a point where they say, "Look, I don't want to deal with this anymore." And so I
Yeah, I
wonder if
mean,
Sean
like I
McVay is
was
going to get to
reading.
that point with him.
Yeah, I mean, and he's gonna be due for a big contract, and it was one of the things I was reading this morning is how much how much are we willing to invest here for somebody that's kind of has a lot of these other things going on. I mean, that's a real part of the conversation. So listen, I think the kid is he's in an environment where he's in LA, right? I mean, there's a lot of things going on in LA. He's off season. He had a great year. He's clearly, you know, he's young. He's lived right. You live and you learn a little bit too. So I think that this might be the best thing for him. And obviously this is all the story being painted of what's going on. We can only really tell from what's being said to us on social and bits and pieces here and there. So what's really true and what's really happened, I mean, listen, there's plenty of guys that are going out and doing dumb things and kind of, letting off some steam here. But he's, those guys are underneath the microscope, right? They're in LA, with all the fame and the celebrities. You do one thing, you screw up one time, you have paparazzi following you around everywhere you go, right? It's not like Boston, Massachusetts, where it's not as you don't see a ton of I mean, you do, but it's not as crazy like LA is. So
You
I
don't
think
find trouble, trouble finds you.
exactly. So I think that the it's a PR move to put him in rehab. Do I think he has a problem? No, I hope not. I think that he's probably just best to kind of lock himself away for a little bit and kind of force himself to get into a better mindset and go into this year and it could be this could be the best thing that happened to him, right? He's kind of takes a beat, relaxes a little bit, and then comes back ready and focused, and probably has a monster year this year in LA. So, there, and then the whole AJ Brown, I
Well,
wanted,
that's the thought process. That's the thought process I have, that Sean McVay
yeah,
says, "Look, we're done with Puka. Let's get into the AJ Brown sweepstakes. Let's figure out a way to get him here." And that's how the domino effect would ultimately impact the Patriots. But because right now, all accounts say that it's the Patriots and no one else when it comes to AJ Brown, and it's a matter of the June 1st deadline. If they make the deal after June 1st, there's less cap money for the Eagles to worry about. But then you focus on 2027. So I really, at the end of the day, if you're talking about this thing, Puka Nakua, send him to a small market team. Send him to Buffalo.
yeah, no,
Send him
no,
to
no,
Buffalo.
no, no, no,
Want to
Good.
get We're
Keep it in
going
the
to take a quick
NFC
break here,
somewhere.
real quick. I want to get some of your thoughts after we come back about Steph Gilmore, one of our
Yeah,
favorites, one of your favorites. I know one of your favorites, one of my favorites. He announced his retirement this week. Talk a little bit about him, his impact, his legacy, what he meant to both the Bills franchise and the Patriots franchise. We're going to get into that here in a very quick moment. But first, I want to tell you guys a little something quick about ZipRecruiter. The biggest time of year for college basketball, the tournament. Teams face off against each other until it's down to the final two. Along the way, there are surprises, comebacks, and upsets. It's anyone's game. Well, regardless of who makes it to the final round, one thing is for certain: it takes the most talented people to build these incredible teams. The same goes when you're hiring. If you want your business to be at the top of its game, you need the best people on your team, and the best place to find them is ZipRecruiter. And now you can try it for free at ziprecruiter.com/audio. That's ziprecruiter.com/audio. You get a ton of extras, including the fact that ZipRecruiter's smart matching technology immediately finds qualified candidates that check all your boxes. And ZipRecruiter recommends screening questions you can easily add to get the highest quality applicants. Score the best for your team with ZipRecruiter. 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. Try it for free at ziprecruiter.com/audio. That's ziprecruiter.com/audio. Meet your match on ZipRecruiter. Chris, as we talked about before, and we've talked about him many, many times on this podcast, Steph Gilmore, one of your favorites, one of
yeah.
my favorites. I loved covering him when he was in New England. I know that you were a big fan of his when you guys were teammates. Tell me what made him special from a player's standpoint, from a teammate standpoint. What made him such a unique player, such a great player?
Yeah, I mean, first thing I'll say about Steph is, early on in my career when I was in Buffalo, we both really came into the league kind of around the same time. And I was a guy that, didn't have a lot of experience and was really trying to figure myself and at myself out as a receiver and special teams and all those kind of things. I had the opportunity for a number of years to go against him every single day. And I I attribute a lot of my success and my progression as a receiver to being able to do that against these guys and Steph in particular. And the one thing that was great about Steph is like he was this quiet, didn't talk a lot. If he talked back to you, you kind of like looked over your shoulder, like, is he actually, talking smack to me? Um, but he was one of those guys that was you knew quietly he did not want to get beat. It did not matter who was it against. So in those scout team reps that I was taking for years and one-on-ones, and every single time he lined up across me, I knew that it was going to be a battle. So I was like, I loved going against him. I think with Steph, what made him so good as a player, as a corner, I mean, he was one of the most patient guys I've ever played against. He was tough to move. He was really good. His footwork was great. He had this like sneaky speed that you didn't think that he was a super fast guy, but he really, he could cover a lot of ground. He had good hands. He really didn't get flustered by anything. I mean, he really was one of the, a true number one corner, right? A true guy, would follow guys all over the place. He took on whatever role that was asked of him. And he did that in Buffalo. He did it in New England, and he was great, man. I mean, I loved him as a teammate. I loved him as playing against him. I loved playing with him. Um, so he really had an unbelievable career, and was glad that he came over to New England, got himself, a few rings, and I mean, he had a tremendous career, and was a really, really good player. And one of those guys that's like, all time, right? All time. And he wasn't a loud guy in the locker room. He wasn't a guy that, you probably sit down at lunch with him and he might say only a couple of words, right? But he was approachable. He was just, he went out there, he competed every single day. He was always available. And he came up big. I know, like, the play that was going on on social over, last week when he announced his retirement, was his play in the AFC Championship game against Jacksonville. I mean, like, those types of plays, man. I mean, that play, the play in the Super Bowl where he had, the interception at the end, at the end of the game, and he came up big, man. He came up big in big moments, and took on that role as that lockdown corner. And he just, he took his competitiveness was, um it was great to be around. He really, like, I'm telling you, man, practice squad guy, first, first teamer, it did not matter. Like, he was going out there and he was going to give you his best, and he's going to let you know too sometimes. I mean, him and Julian were some of the best matchups that I love to watch, because the two of them would try to get underneath each other's skin. And I'm pretty sure that his first training camp, he got thrown out of
That
practice.
was I was gonna bring that up, and I'm glad you bring that up. And the conspiracy theory is, or was with us in the media tent, was that Edelman made a crack about the contract.
Yeah, or Jules just didn't want to practice that day, and he knew he could
Mhm.
get thrown out by, by fighting with them.
Fair, completely fair, completely reasonable.
Because that
Yeah,
that was Bill's rule, right? You fight
yeah,
and you're out. So,
yeah.
like, no, no, man. It probably was a little bit hotter day in Boston, and Jules just decided to go after the new guy, and he's like, screw it. I'm just gonna get tossed out and go after Steph. But I think the respect that everyone had for him across the league, right? And I think Julian would say the same thing. I mean, there's so much respect for Steph and what he did, his career, and how he played and how he approached the game. I mean, he was a pro. He really was. And how he took care of his body, and how he prepared, and all those things. I mean, he was a pro. And I think, we loved him in New England, and I think Buffalo obviously loved him in Buffalo. I mean, he was a really great player, had an awesome career, and I'm very, I'm grateful that I was able to share the field with that guy.
Got a great stat for you here. Steph Gilmore was just the seventh player of the Brady Belichick era Patriots to land a Super Bowl ring, first team All Pro, and a Pro Bowl nomination all in the same year.
Wow.
It's a really good group
Yeah.
of players that he was part of. The other six: Ty Law, Richard Seymour, Adam
Mm,
Vinatieri, Rob Gronkowski, Darrell Revis, and Matthew Slater.
good company.
You got probably
Good company.
five or six Hall of Famers in that group.
Yeah.
You can make an argument, and I know that people have made an argument about Matthew Slater. I think Slater's a Hall of Famer, and I
Yep.
know Vinatieri's going to get in.
Yep.
So, and Gronk is going to get in.
Yeah.
So that's a good group. And a lot of people started asking me, do you think he is part of a Hall of Fame? And I think in a weird way, his quiet demeanor is going to work against him in that way, because he was every bit, look, the numbers suggest he was every bit as good as Richard Sherman.
Oh yeah.
But I think Richard Sherman's going to get into the Hall of Fame because he is Richard Sherman, all capital letters, and he's on TV every week, and he's got the attitude and the profile and all of that. Steph,
Yeah.
in my
Well,
experience, I don't think Steph ever wanted that.
no, no, he wasn't. he was never a guy that was trying to be in the, didn't want the attention, didn't really care for it. I think that was what was great about him, right? I think that, there's some guys that you play against, and I'm not anyone in particular, but maybe they're going against practice squad guys, or they're going, in practice, and then maybe take a few plays off. It's just like, hey, I'm not. Steph was never one of those guys, man. It was like every single play. There was no you were not going to beat him. Like, he did not want to get beat. He was going to give you his best. But and who knows what the Hall of Fame committee is doing these days? So I can't. It's not really. I don't even want to get into that. But I would argue that he has had a Hall of Fame career. And when you start talking about the best corners in the last couple of decades, Steph is up there, right? I mean, he is all of what, locked down, followed guys around, number one receivers. He was never to one side of the field. He did everything Darrell Revis did, right? He did everything that Sherman did. All of these guys. So when you look, if you're just have an outside perspective, and you take all of these things into account of like, what is a Hall of Fame type corner, right? It's a guy that you're going to stick on a number one receiver every single game. And he had that in him. You did, right? I mean, he guarded Antonio Brown. He guarded Julio Jones. He guarded all of those guys that we played in the AFC. And he did it for years, right? And yeah, sure. Did we have some things schemed up, and we had Malcolm on the other side, and we had some other guys, but Steph was that guy that you counted on to kind of be one on one by himself with no safety over the top, and he was going to get the job done, and he did, man. So like, Hall of Fame career, like, absolutely, 100%. He's a Hall of
Now,
Famer in my book. I'll tell you that much.
now that you mention it and just kind of getting a chance to think about it, the idea of iron sharpening iron, that was a really good secondary for a really long time. Gilmore, Butler,
Gilmore,
the
Butler,
McCourties,
Logan,
choking.
McCourty, I
Yeah.
mean, Duran. I mean, dude, those guys going against those guys. I mean, you talk about competition and practice, and you hear Tom always talk about how like practice was so competitive, but that secondary group was good. And you had guys like Logan who knew the offense probably better than some of the offensive players, and guys like Devin that had been around so long. So when you had those competitive periods when it was ones versus ones, I mean, those were those were harder than the games sometimes, just because those guys really, it was fun. It was a great group, to go against every single day. And you got the best out of Steph, always got the best.
All right. Before we wrap up, one more question for you. I know that you are a golf guy, and the Masters starts this week. Our friends at Fan Duel have Scotty Scheffler at plus 550 to win the Masters. Kicks off Thursday at Augusta. First of all, have you ever been?
Oh, no. Bucket
That's a
list.
bucket list
Bucket
thing.
list.
Yeah, that's. I
Bucket
have
list.
friends who've gone
Yeah.
and say that it's like going to Wrigley Field. It's going to Fenway. I was lucky enough a couple of years ago to go to Wimbledon.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
yeah,
Yeah.
but it's just one of those things that you have to get to if especially you as a golf guy, I would imagine you would have to get there sooner rather than later. But I was wondering if you have a guy this weekend, again, Scotty Scheffler 550 with FanDuel, Bryson DeChambeau 1,000 plus 1,000, and John Rahm plus 1,000. Those are the top three numbers, top three
Yeah.
guys.
The Masters is such an interesting tournament, and there's so much hype, and you always expect some of those guys. I mean, Scheffler, obviously, you expect him to come out and play well. And there's always a guy though at the bottom of the field that kind of, whether he's an amateur or he's, a guy that you just don't really hear the name of, or guys. I mean, that golf course is tough. So like, you have to have everything on. And there's guys like Cameron Young who could always go out and play well. And so it'll be interesting. I mean, it's such a fun golf tournament, obviously, as golfers all over the country and the world rather will be watching. I'm sure, Rory's gonna be. I'd be curious, what's Rory's
Rory's in the top
odds?
10. Rory's in
Yeah,
the
yeah,
top
yeah.
10.
So, Rory's obviously a favorite. Scheffler, Bryson, Rahm. I mean, I think we all expect those guys to play well. You never really know, but there's always that one guy, right? At least for a couple of days. It's hard to win this tournament, man, for 4 days of competition and to get there on Sunday and to play for that green jacket. You're a lot of nerves are going into Sunday if you're in the top of that leaderboard. And we've seen over the course of the years, we've seen some crazy things. So it'll be a fun tournament to watch.
Chris Hogan, thank you very much for your time, my friend. Take care, and we will talk again next week as we move 1 week closer to the NFL draft.
Can't wait.